Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Samp&Chance. I'm your host, Bobby Sampson, joined as always with my man wearing the Pacquiao hat and the Ric Flair shirt, Mr. Chance Michaels. And right beside us, ladies and gentlemen, I don't think this man needs an introduction. The legend himself, Mr. Stitch Duran. Stitch, thank you very much for coming on the show. It's an honor and it's a privilege. And wow, this is amazing. Thank you, sir.
Nah, it's my pleasure also, Bobby. It's good meeting you, my man.
You.
Yeah, I told you when we talked before, I said, I got stories like nobody, and you guys asked me if there was any restrictions. I said, nah, I got whatever you want to ask, man. It's I call it barbershop talk. Just
Fair
sit there
enough.
and
Fair
shoot
enough,
the
brother.
shit, right? Yeah.
Awesome. So I guess the first question I really want to ask, everybody knows you for what you've done in the movies and what you've done in so many corners, but who is Stitch Duran?
Yeah, I'm a simple guy, man. You know that. But I got a great history. I grew up in the Central Valley of California, which is considered the agricultural capital of the world. And I was born and raised in a migrant camp, and you guys probably don't know what they are, but they were housing that whoever owned the fields we worked in, they would give us free housing. So my address, my birth certificate is CPC number 12. California Packing Company. But then from there, I migrated to a little town 3 miles away, Planada, and that was those have been my roots ever since. But I'm that simple guy that had a dream, like all of us, and I followed my dreams, and they're still coming true, man. So, but I'm that simple guy. I never want to change, and I like me being the way I was. So why would I change?
No, 100%. And I really wanted to bring that point out growing up in a migrant camp because, it just proved that no matter where you start, it's about how you finish and how you get to that point. And that's just an amazing example of, hard work, dedication, and someone persevering through hardships where a lot of people may give up. So I think that's really important for people to hear. Stitch, you joined the Army afterwards or the Air Force afterwards. Well, why did you do that? What was that experience about?
Yeah, that was like I say, things just happened, right? So baseball was what I loved. I played all 4 years of high school varsity ball, and I played since I was little, and I walked down to Merced College, which is a junior college 9 miles from Planada and Merced. And but I didn't have a car, so I didn't know about grants and scholarships. So I would go to school with my friends, and after school they would leave, and I would stay and I'd practice with the team, and then I would have to hitchhike home. And like I say, I was real naive, and I didn't know about, like say, the grants and the scholarships. So I went into the recruiter's office and joined the Air Force. And I always said if I went to the Orient, this was during the Bruce Lee area times, that I would want to study the martial arts, right? So they sent me to a place in 1972, April 13th, 1972, a place called Thailand. And shit, I'm a little Chicano kid. I didn't know what the hell Thailand was, right? And I had friends that were there like 3 months before, and they invited me downtown to Banchan to see some fights. And I'm thinking boxing, and this guy is Muay Thai fights. Guy throws a kick and knocks the guy out. And I said, I'm in, So at the base, they had Taekwondo. Well, Taekwondo to me sounds like Thailand. To me, I didn't know the difference. It's Korean art for the GIs at the base. So we started training in Taekwondo, and there's a lot of good leg kicks and a lot of good legs. You specialize in legs. And then they left, and the Thais took over, and they kind of transitioned us into the Muay Thai system. And so, we had powerful kicks, fast kicks, and all that. So yeah, that's how I got involved. Moved to Oakland after I got out of the military and got into boxing to improve my hands, and started training fighters, amateurs, me and Ice, and promoted amateur shows. And then I opened up a school of kickboxing with just a credit card, show you how crazy I was. But I was already training top-rated world champion kickboxers. Javier Mendez, one of them, right? Now he's AKA, and Dennis Alexio, the brother and kickboxer with Jean-Claude Van Damme that was in the wheelchair.
Okay.
He was a legitimate world champion. Best athlete I ever met until I met MMA guys. And, opened up a school of kickboxing, and I was learning. I was a trainer, and I promoted some fights at Travis Air Force Base and Solano College, with the baseball team of all things, right? And but I made the move to Vegas going on 28 years ago, just to follow my dreams. And I worked for RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company, so let me include them because it was an 8 to 5 job, company car, and I mean I had no sales experience, but they put me in corporate America, and I asked for a job transfer, and they gave me a transfer, and I had to take a secondary position, which was like $25,000 a year less. But my family supported me, my wife, and made the move. And then it was only boxing, and then the UFC came around, and they changed my life. And the UFC took me out and changed my life again. And here I am, talking to you. I did an interview earlier today, and the guy said, "Man, leaving the UFC is the best thing ever happened to you, huh?" Yeah, it has. So that's where I'm at, and continue, working on different projects, and I've been blessed with a lot of great opportunities.
That's amazing. And like you're a part of the fabric of combat sport. I think you're one of those individuals, in my opinion, anyways. You stand out. You think Michael Jordan, you think, Stitch Duran, like in terms of, you know what I mean? It just that's what I see. Stitch, let's talk about the UFC if we can really quick.
Sure.
I just want to touch on it. You work with a lot of amazing fighters in there. What was it like working with them and wrapping hands, in the back? Because a lot of times you're alone with the fighter at that point. Their teams aren't with them. No one's with them. It's just you and them. What's that experience like? And do you become more of just a cut man and a rap man? Do you become like a psychologist and whatnot
Yep.
to help these guys?
Yep, 100%. You're a good question, and you're right on the psychology part. But keep in mind, Chance and Bobby, these guys are modern day gladiators, and I worked with the best of the best of the best when I was there with the UFC by far. But they're modern day gladiators, but deep inside they're all babies.
Mhm.
And my job is to take care of the baby, and they understand that, right? But psychology, and I relate that to them. I'll hug them like they're my son, and I'll take care of you like you're my son, and just give them those point of confidences. And like Frank Mir said in one of the interviews, he says, "When I see Stitch walking into the dressing room, my stomach drops because I know it's time to fight," right?
Mm.
And then Vitor Belfort says, when Stitch walks into the dressing room, even though I know he's fighting with the other guy or he's working with the other fighter, he brings that calming effect, and you have to understand these fighters to really appreciate their sentiment behind that. The husbands, I mean, the fathers, the mothers, the wives, the husbands, they thank me. It's badass. That's what makes my job so much fun. Those moments. Yeah.
Do you miss still working for the UFC?
No, I'm doing. It's funny. PFL is doing 3 shows. They did a show last week here in Vegas. They're doing one this week here in Vegas, and then they're doing another one. So they're doing back to back shows in Las Vegas, and that's pretty badass because they started here, right? And they're kind of now coming into UFC territory, which I think is awesome, right? And so anyway, I got a hold of T Wade, the one the Burt Watson of the WFL, and I said, "Look, man, I just want to see everybody, hang out with. I miss you guys, and so I'll do it. I'll wrap pants for free. Just want to hang out with you guys." Well, they put me on the payroll, So Saturday, in fact, tomorrow they got kind of like a mock weigh-in, so tomorrow night I'm gonna go over there and just see the guys I haven't seen in a long time.
Where are they hosting the fights?
At the Virgin Hotel, which used to be the Hard Rock Hotel.
Very
And
cool.
I saw Nate Diaz. I saw him when Triple G fought Canelo, and so it was good to see him. And I run into other guys, and it's a big family reunion.
That's awesome. So how does one become a cut man? How does that happen? Is there a school?
Yeah, good question. Now, you know what? I get that question asked all the time, Bobby, and I mean from all over the world. But I said, look, man, here's what you got to do to be a cut man. Number one, you got to spend hours and days and weeks and months and years in the gym working with these guys. Let them understand you, understand them, understand pain, understand, all these situations. And during that process, you're learning how to wrap hands, and you're doing it for free, practicing on you and on you and others, on yourself. And then hopefully somebody will have you work a corner where you're carrying the bucket. It's a step-by-step program. I get doctors, EMTs, nurses. They think they can jump to the front of the line because they have experience, but you can't. it takes more than just, working on a cut for 50 seconds. Psychology, like you said, proper techniques and wrapping hands. And so, yeah, it's, you just can't walk into this game, bro.
No, fair enough, fair enough. We talked at the Caleb fight, and I asked you about his eye and everything. When you're working on a cut, like, his eye looked really bad. I know your role as a cut man is just to do what you're supposed to do, but do you have input with the rest of the team in the corner when a cut looks as bad as that one did?
Yeah, of course. My job is to take care of the fighter, number one.
Right.
And even the doctors. I worked the fight last Saturday in Newark on the top rank cards, and
Yeah.
the guy got a big cut, and I worked on it. And the doctor, man, great job. What did you do? Well, I explained to him the process. This is the process you do when you work on cuts, and yeah, so he was a little surprised, but people get surprised on how things work, but it's all in proper technique.
Okay.
Stitch, you've been involved in many, many famous fights. What are some of the most memorable fights you've been involved with UFC, boxing, some of the cuts? I remember John Jones broke his toe. You worked on that. Describe some of that for us.
Yeah, well, let's go John Jones. It's easier when you throw me a name, I'll give you a story. But John Jones, I worked all his fights. I always wrapped his hands and everything. And he fought Chael, right? Well, he broke his toe. Well, at that point, I go and I look at me and the doctor go look at it, and his toe's like this, and it's literally like this, right, in two different areas. And the doctor says, Stitch, what are you gonna do? He's asking me. We're in the ring. I'm looking at his toe, right? Well, I had just gotten my new line of Stitch Premium Athletic Tape, right? I pulled on his toe to kind of straighten it out, and then I wrapped it with the tape, and then the cameras went right on it. So that's with John Jones. But there was my daughter just sent me a message yesterday that Robbie Lawler, that was his name, Robbie Lawler and the guy from England, they had the fight of the year, Rory McDonald.
Oh, yes, sir.
That fight's being nominated into the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
But that fight right there, I think it was the last major fight I worked when I was with the UFC. The next day they had a reality show, and that was it. But Robbie Lawler ended up with a big old split. You guys remember?
Yeah.
And I just saw it on. So anyway, my daughter says, Dad, they're being nominated into the fight for the Hall of Fame, and you're right in the middle of it. So
it looked like you got slashed with a knife.
Huh?
It looked like you got slashed with a knife. That was
that's what I tell people. It looked like they went like this, and just a razor blade just went up.
Ouch.
But to the point when he goes, and just blood goes everywhere, right?
Oh.
For boxing, Vladimir Klitschko, Anthony Joshua. I mean, I've had hundreds, man. But this one was special because I've been with Vladimir Klitschko for 8 years. First fight I worked with him, he ended up with that big old cut, and I had the doctor stop it because I know he was winning on the scorecards, and he won because it was a serious cut. Could have made the difference in the fight, but I knew point wise he was winning. So when the doctor came, she said, "Well, what do you think?" Because I worked on that cut with Forrest Griffin when he fought Shogun. So I worked on him before, but that big vein, when you pop it, it bleeds more than the average, and it gets into the eyes. So when the doctor came, she goes, "What do you think?" I go like this. I open it. I say, "Yeah, it's pretty bad." Stopped the fight. Went to the scorecards. He ended up winning the fight, and then became a world champion again. And but the Anthony Joshua fight, because I have this great relationship with both the Klitschko brothers, and Vitaly, as you know, is the mayor of Kiev, and Vladimir is the face of the Ukraine, the country fighting against Russia. But on this last one, I didn't see Vladimir and Vitaly till Friday at the weigh-ins because, and this was in London, 90,000 people, Wembley Stadium, right? My daughter Carla had gotten married in Crete, so I flew in Thursday night, and so I'm spending time with Vladimir and Vitaly in the green room before they get on the scale for the weigh-ins, and we're going through everything. And finally, I put my hand on Vladimir, and I said, "Look, don't worry about nothing tomorrow. I'm gonna take care of you like you're my son." And I leave because I know, shit's in their head. Man, I'll let you guys know, bro. I'm putting the final Vaseline on him right before Michael Buffer does the announcements. 90,000 people in person, and Brits. So that's like 150 everybody else, right? Brits are so they're big fanatics, and millions of all over the world. I'm putting the Vaseline on him, and he says, "You could call me son, bro." That just doesn't happen, right? And so that's one of the great memories. I'll relay something to you also, Bobby. In the movie Creed, they would use me as a consultant, right? Because I told them I want to make sure things are done right because you're representing my sport. So Michael comes and asks, he said, Stitch, they're going to do a scene. Who should give away the WBC belt? So I explained to him, Jose Suleiman, Mexico City, most prestigious bout, and so on, so on. And they did that. So I see Mauricio, his son, when we did a show in Dallas, when Ugas fought Earl Spence, and I relayed that story. And he says, well, look, let's send a picture. Let's take a picture and let's send it to the Klitschko's, because they were both WBC champions. I'm going to let you guys listen to what Vladimir sent me, and then it just shows you the character that he was and the relationship that we had together, man. It just, I have to share it. It's that important.
Please do.
So here's how we go. Let me see here.
My two favorite men, especially Stitch, with whom I spent so much time talking, and he actually saved my career on a lot of different stages. If Stitch wouldn't be in my corner, I would not make the record of 12 years being a champion. So that's so great to see you both, and Stitch is the man.
That's awesome.
That's pretty special. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, of course, and it's important to share because it shows character of these guys,
Absolutely.
and just, but everybody I work with that's the story. This is what I do. This is what keeps me young, and that's what keeps me involved. And that's why I always want to try to spread stories and share as much of the moments as I can with people as much as I can. It's phenomenal. But I'm always a little Chicano that grew up as a farm worker, right? So that's my motivation, is always to give back because I can.
Absolutely. And thank you for all of that. Stitch, you're always traveling. When does Stitch Duran rest?
Yeah, well, I was gonna rest today, but I got this interview.
No.
You know what? It's a blessing. We were talking about it, and I'll do 40-45 shows a year. So I was in Newark last week, and I was in Tulsa the week before, and of course I did the show here, and so on and so on, and going forward, same thing. But no, it's a passion, and if the worst thing could happen to me is the traveling and the hotel food, bro, I'm doing all right. I'll take that anytime, right?
No doubt.
But usually if the fight's on Saturday, I'll leave Thursday, and I'll go to the weigh-ins Friday, and then that's when I associate with everybody, and then I'll do the fight Saturday, and then Sunday I'm home. So Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, for the most part, it's all family.
And so when in Vegas, you just basically go home.
Yeah, I go home, but I'll go do gym runs, barbershop talk, right? So I'll go to the Mayweather's gym, Bones Adams gym, City Boxing, Salas's boxing gym. I'll go to Couture's and just, I know everybody. It's my job.
No, 100%.
And you love it. I can see the passion in your face. Talk about it.
How can you not love it, man? I mean, it's fuck. You go in there and you see these guys and guys that are training that you haven't seen in a long time. They hey, what's up? And just brings that friendship back again.
I'm feeding off your energy. It's just amazing. Just absolutely amazing. Current state of boxing. What is your take on the game as it is today? In terms of
it's pretty sad. Well, the game itself is sad. And I'm glad you asked that question. And I'm gonna, like I do other people. 23 years ago, and before, I did an interview on how I wanted to educate, wrap hands, work cuts, do videos on that. This young kid that just graduated from the American Film Institute, John Barnhouse, 23-year-old, contacted me. And I know this much about film, right? I just know that I want to film, and this guy knows probably this much about boxing, but he just graduated. So we were going to do a film called Chuck Bodak, the Shaman of Boxing. Chuck Bodak was my mentor as a cutman. But we got so many interviews that we changed it to Boxer's Nightmare. And it deals with all the hardships that fighters go through. So we did that, but I presented it to the wrong people, the networks, the promoters, the people that didn't want to change the game of boxing because it's economics, right? I've always looked at the health and safety of fighters. That comes from my parents always fighting for the rights of farm workers during the Cesar Chavez era. right? So that's been, take care of the underprivileged, right?
Yeah.
Anyway, my buddy John passed away about 4 months ago.
I'm sorry to hear.
On some shit, and it broke my heart. And I hadn't seen this film in 15, 16 years, and I pulled it out, and everybody there are all Hall of Famers. I got Mike Tyson a week before he got his tattoo, gave me great interviews. Fernando Vargas, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad. For referees, I had Joe Cortez, Richard Steele, Mills Lane. For Emmanuel Stewart is in it. Chuck Bodak, of course, is in it. I got Dr. Margaret Goodman, Dr. Homansky, Mark Ratner, that used to be the head commissioner.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at this film and I'm thinking, damn, now that MMA is involved, nothing has really changed. Fighters are still getting screwed. Rocky in the Creed movie got screwed. That's why I hate to do this one, because of contracts, right? Nobody educates these guys on how to take care of their careers. So anyway, this documentary, I listened, send me your email. I want to send it to you. I want you guys to look at it.
Yeah, I want to see it.
And see the stuff I pulled out of these guys. Everybody had a solution and nobody's done nothing about it. So on behalf of John Barnhouse, I want to start the revolution again and see why shouldn't these guys get some kind of insurance, and well, Mark Ratner put it best. He says the money comes from the pay-per-views, and have these pay-per-view guys, 25 cents a ticket that they sell, put it towards a fund that the ABC, the Association of Boxing Commission, can control. And let's say you break your hand in the gym and you don't have insurance, well, contact them and get your hand fixed and they'll pay for it. See, so there has to be a fund, a pool of money. But all these guys gave me some great stuff, and I'm looking at it now. And I'm spreading the word, so send me your email.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
we will look to promote it, and we would love to help support this cause. I mean, we love boxing, obviously, and we want to see it grow. Now, that being said, that Caleb Plant, David Benavides fight, do you think that was the start of something new? Because, I mean, we got Tank and Javante coming up, we got Tank Garcia coming up. We're starting to now kind of see fights that should be happening now, right? I think the last time, in my opinion anyways, we kind of saw this was with the Four Kings, where those guys basically fought each other every weekend, it seemed like. Right? Do you see the younger generation kind of putting that foot forward now? Like you heard Shakir on the weekend saying, yeah, I want Haney next.
Yeah.
Right? So it's just kind of like these young bucks, this new blood of boxing. Do you feel that we're going to start trending in that direction?
That's a good question. And these guys, that little group of guys, Ryan Garcia, Devontae Davis, Shakir's, Haney, Rowley, all these little guys, they're kind of like the point of the spearhead, right? If they could do it, why not these other guys, right? And so, yeah, those are really good fights. I'm looking forward to seeing, and just see what happens.
So an exclusive here. Are you working the Tank and Garcia fight?
I was gonna work with Shane Mosley Jr.
Oh, wow.
I worked with them before and all that, but I just checked with them last week and they moved this date to another date. So no, at this point I'm not, and so yeah, we'll see what happens.
Stitch, I got to ask you about this since we do a wrestling show also. What was it like being a corner man for Brock Lesnar when he came to the UFC and he had that bad gash? You were the corner man. I want to hear about that.
I love Brock, and that was a bad cut, right? So a little behind the scenes story now on that, right? And then so I get to him, he's fighting Cain Velasquez, of course, gets a big old split right down there to the point where I can see the bone, so it goes all the way down to the bone. And I'm working on him, and he tells just him and I, Stitch, take care of me. I say, yeah, of course, I will. And I did, but going back in reverse, where we get to this point is when he came with the UFC, I was the one that was designated to wrap his hands. So you got Ric Flair there, right? So when he went to the weigh-ins for his first fight, we're at the Mandalay Bay, and after he weighs in, I go in the back and I do a practice run on his reps. Well, my daughter Carla, the one that got married in Crete, she's a mega wrestling fan. Mega goes to all the things and all that, and she was there. So I wrapped Brock's hands, and we got that bond together and cut him off, and she has the wraps, So
cool.
So we ended up with a good friendship there. I'm wrapping his hands and I tell him how I like his shirt. Oh man, Brock, I like your shirt. He goes, I have one for you. He says, I packed one for you. I said, what? I said, well, my wife, did she ask, should we, as she's packaged, should we get one for Stitch? And he said, yeah. Man, I finished wrapping his hands, bro. He goes up to his bag, gets me the shirt and gives it to me.
Cool.
And, yeah, so yeah, we've super guy. I gotta show you, and then hold on, give me a second.
Yep.
No problem. Stitch is going to grab something, guys. This is if you're listening to this as an audio form. Wow, Chance, amazing.
It's amazing. Really, really good. We're lucky.
All right.
Absolutely.
All right, so
we're back.
So I'm wrapping Brock's hands, right? And of course they have 4X gloves, him and Shane Carter. They were saying 5, but there were 4X. And I'm putting the gloves on them and they rip like the Hulk. I was like, oh shit, man. So Bert Watson's my coordinator saying, oh, Stitch, what are we gonna do? What are we gonna do? Right. And I remember the Klitschko's, because their hands were so big that they would put, once you put the wraps on, they would put Vaseline on there and then slide the glove in. And that's what I did to Brock. And so anyway, I kept the gloves. But look how big these suckers are, bro.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
that being said, who has the biggest hands you've ever wrapped?
Right here.
Brock, eh?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he was a big guy, man. So, after he had his surgery, he's at ringside during one of the UFCs when he came back and gives me a chest bump and almost knocks me down. So I got a good relationship with Brock.
That's a cool story.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So you've been with so many athletes and this and that. Do other athletes ever get jealous when they realize you're in their opponent's corner?
Nah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, well,
not jealous, but like, oh shit, they got Stitch.
Yeah.
Why can't we get Stitch?
Yeah. I had one coach tell me, he said, man, when I saw you in the other corner, I knew we were done. So you do kind of bring this to the table, right? Yeah.
How do you become the cornerman? Like, for example, you were in Newark, you were in Tulsa. How does that happen? Do they reach out to you? Is it like a pool that they pick from? How does that happen? What's the process in signing up for a corner?
Well, in this process here, there's 2 ways. Normally, without this, what I'm doing, let me tell you what I'm doing with Top Rank. When Top Rank had their shows, well, when COVID kicked in, we were all done. Nobody was doing anything. Right. Top Rank called me and Mike Basil, and they were going to do 18 shows, ESPN shows, in the bubble at the MGM. Right. And I live 20 minutes from the MGM, right? So Brad asked me, Brad Jacobs, the CEO, if I'd be interested in working those shows. I said, yeah, of course. So we did 18 shows there, and they liked the program so much because a lot of these young guys don't have proper cut men and all that. We gave them the services. They liked the program so much that they kept us. And that's what we're doing now with these guys. We're traveling with Top Rank and like Shakir Stevenson, I've worked with him all his fights. So he's designated for me, Jared Anderson, guys I've worked with before, I keep them, right? And then other guys that come on board that, whoever convinces Top Rank to get me in the corner, it's on them.
Right on.
Stitch, I have to ask you, you're talking about Top Rank. What is the old man Bob Arum like at 91, still kicking and still at all these events? What's he like?
You know what? Good question, man. And super respect for this man. As old as he is, he's always at ringside and always there with the fighters. Comes up to me and just shakes my hand, and but a lot of respect for him. And that's a good question because I told Brad Jacobs, the CEO, I said, you know what, man, I worked for RJ Reynolds Tobacco Company 23 years, top of the line corporate company, right? I worked with the UFC for 15 years, top of the line company. When it came to business, right? The Klitschko's, top of the line. So I'm accustomed to that. Top Rank falls in that category. And I let them know, man, you guys, business-wise, you take care of your people. And then so that's how I ended up with these guys. But in other fights, I freelance. So I get calls and then depending on the show, let's say I have an independent call from a Caleb Plant. Good example. See, Caleb Plant, I work with economically, it's a lot more, right? Because Top Rank they had a show in Fresno, which is 50 miles from my hometown. But economically, it made more sense for me to work with Caleb. So I have a line of cutmen that are already, they've worked MMA fights, bare knuckle fights. They've been proven to me. So if I can't go, I'll have one of these guys come and replace me. So it's a good program.
Cool.
But it's the
Yep.
program, that program is the program that me, the original me, Leon Tabs, and Burt Watson put together when we started with the UFC. Because there was no program like that whatsoever. So now it's used worldwide. Good
So,
question.
why don't we go back to 2015 and we talk about that Reebok deal, man? What was it that was so bad that they decided they didn't need Stitch Duran?
Yeah, that was pretty good. You know, like I say, I've always like the sponsor. We worked on sponsors. Everybody worked on sponsors, right? Fighters were making shitload of money. They were making 50, 100 grand a fight, you know, and I was making good salary. I needed the UFC to get my sponsors. But when like Tap Out, Bad Boy, One More Round, Zions, when they would all come, watch companies, they would come to me. I would negotiate my deal, and then I would negotiate for you, and you know, you're not gonna get what I get, but you get 3 checks from 3 different sponsors. Leon Taz bought a Cadillac, you know.
Yeah.
So I always took care of them, and when this Reebok deal went down, everybody's effing UFC, effing Reebok, and Dana White and all that, and so they called the cutmen together and says, "Well, meet with you guys." So they brought in like 15 cutmen from throughout the United States, and basically they told us, you know, no more sponsors. So I tried to negotiate additional monies for at least give us a raise. Well, there's no money in the kitty. All right. Well, at that point, I knew I couldn't stay. So I get a call from John Nash from BloodyElbow.com, but never met him. Don't even know what he looks like. Never seen his site. But he said, "Would you be interested in doing an interview on how the Reebok deal affected the cutmen?" Bro, I go back to being a farm worker with my parents, fighting for their rights, and what I've done, and knowing that, you know, not gonna get no better. Yeah. So the interview I did was very politically correct. Of course, I work for RJ Reynolds, but I think maybe one point that pissed him off is saying maybe I got to concentrate a little bit more on boxing, since boxing pays a little bit more to compensate for what I'm losing to stay with the UFC. Well, that shit went viral.
Yeah, and ironically enough, now that the deal is done, Dana White himself has admitted that that was a shitty deal for the company.
Oh, the Reebok.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you know, it was so bad that I mean, I'm getting calls from all over the world and compliment guys, people in the UFC office are, you know, I spoke up, right? And then I'm at Costco with my wife, and I get a call from my friends. We're all friends at that point, and asking if I could talk, and I knew what it was about because I'm getting a shitload of. I mean, they're just going crazy, biggest thing. And so I get home, and right here where I'm sitting at talking to you guys, Mark Ratner and Jesse Gonzalez called me, and Mark's voice is kind of cracking. And now Mark's the vice president of UFC, and his voice is cracking. And the only thing he said is, because of the interview you did about Reebok, the UFC is not going to use you no more. And took a shot. I said, all right, Mark, that's fine. You tell Dana I said that he ain't got no balls, that he should have called me since he's the one that took me out, right? So we left it at that. And first message I get from this guy, I respond back to him. I want you to be the first to know. UFC let me go for speaking out about the Reebok deal. I got to find a new job. Bro, that shit went viral all over the world. Bam, and I'm getting job offers from everywhere. I did 57 interviews in 1 week. Had camera crews coming to my house. It was insane. And there was one guy.
You're a legend, man.
No, it's you know, there was one guy, Robbie LeBlanc, lives here. He does motivational Mondays. And I'm listening to it here. I'm sitting right here where I'm talking to you guys. And he says, well, today's motivation is about, you know, doing what's right. And my buddy so-and-so, Stitch Duran, lost his job because he spoke out about so-and-so. Man, I started crying. I had so much positive energy coming at me that one just let everything go. And I had Uriah Faber, Bad Boy, offer to make shirts, and proceeds come to me. And it was insane. So, wow. You know, and I was memes from fans. I got them. They were inspirational. So a couple weeks later, UFC has their first big show on Fox, right?
Right.
And Karen Bryant is interviewing Dana. Well, what about Stitch Duran? Is Stitch ever coming back? It was that big, you know. Nah, you know what? Stitch no be back. And So he had my number, should have called me. And then at the end, he ends up screwing up and saying, Stitch was never my friend. Bro, that's still blowing up in his face. You know, Steve Jackson, I didn't know he was a basketball player. Now he does commentating for Showtime.
Right.
When Nugas fought Spence, he came up to him. He's the one that brought that up, and he put it on his thing. You know, oh yeah, Stitch was never my friend. So best thing ever happened to me. You know, you speak up for what's right, and so of all the things, coming to a close on this, Wesley Snipes during Creed 1 comes up and hey man, UFC did you wrong. But the best compliment I've gotten so far through all these years, and people still stop me. Yesterday at the restaurant, hey, you're a guy from the UFC, still stop me. But the best compliment I ever got was during the bubble. One of the trainers from Brazil, Dorio, he comes up to me and he has his train from lunch, and I haven't seen him in 8 years, bro. And he trained Anderson Silva and, you know, all these guys, and Luis Doria. So he comes up and he says, Stitch, we, the coaches, the fighters, we thank you for speaking up because we couldn't. That said it all, bro.
You did the right thing.
Yeah, no, you did. Absolutely. I mean, especially, I mean, all fighters are independent contractors at the end of the day, right? So without their sponsorship, without that, I mean, really, you're being controlled. I remember you did an interview in London when you were doing Tyson Fury's corner, and you shared the story of how he, you know, told you to put your sponsorships on your jacket. Did you share that?
Yeah, I meet Tyson Fury. I walk into Top Rank Gym, and he's putting his shoes on the stairs going up to the ring, and he gets up and comes up to me and shakes my hand and says, hey, the best cut man in boxing and all that. So we're talking, you know, like I do all the fighters. I try to get as much information about them as I can. And so first thing we're doing is, you know, I'm feeling the cut. I'm looking at it. And guy did a good job as a plastic surgeon. And, you know, I tell him, you know, this is the kind of fight where I'm going to keep ice on you every round. I'm not going to wait till you start swelling. I'm going to do it out of preventive maintenance, right? And then finally at the end, I said, you know, I did Tyson, also another thing. I work with sponsors. Do you mind if I make an outfit like yours with the same colors and everything and put my sponsors on it? He puts his hand on me and says, Stitch, you can do whatever you want, as long as there's no drugs, alcohol, or, you know, or gambling. And that was it, you know. And then at the end of that first fight, it's funny because I got 3 pictures that somebody took and shared with me where he just has his shorts on, ready to take a shower after the fight, right? And he's giving me a kiss and a hug and says, thanks for keeping ice on me. I love you, you know.
Nice.
Yeah.
That was awesome. So you worked against Tyson Fury when he was fighting Klitschko, correct?
Yeah. That was, good point. So I said, you know, Tyson, I sure we didn't know how you beat Vladimir Klitschko. But then I saw you fight Deontay Wilder, and now I understand why. You are a natural fighter like Floyd Mayweather. You're a heavyweight Floyd Mayweather. And you look at him, everything he does is just all natural. You know, he has trainers, of course, you got, you know, but what he does like Floyd, that's just instincts, bro. It's and for a heavyweight to do that, go into the body, goes to the body like a Mexican fighter, you know. So he's very not heavyweight. You know?
Speaking of the heavyweights, your take on the current situation there. Do you think it's being overplayed, or do you think these guys are just avoiding each other? What's your take on it?
Are you talking about? Well, you know what? Your types of Fury,
Fury Usyk.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, at a point you get there's so many opportunities now that are being brought up. Social media fights, which are big, and they pay big bucks, and the injury level is minimal. So there's those type of things. You know, there's different things. Yeah, I think you'll see that fight, but it's a game of time, you know. And
we're kind of the school of thought that they're just waiting for the stadium to be built in Saudi Arabia so they can have it there. That's why it's being delayed as much as it is. Like they're saying this, and this, but they want to be there because that's where they're going to get the most money, right? So
yeah, I would think so. And you know, when Jake Paul fought in Saudi, I was gonna work with Badu Jack in Saudi Arabia. He's going for a world title, and then they called me to work with Jake Paul, but I had to turn them both down because I was going to the premiere for Creed, bro. You know, I always do fights, but can't always go to a premiere, right? But Amir Abdallah, that works with Caleb, works with Badu, a lot of guys. He's now he's hooked up with the Saudis. So he would just send me a message the other day that he wants me to go and educate, wrapping hands, working cuts, run the system. How do you run a go? So anyway, yeah, I've been to Dubai, plenty of times, and the guys respect me for what I bring to the table, and I'd love to do something in Saudi Arabia, and he even mentioned Qatar,
wow.
So just these countries that have so much money that they need to, I guess, westernize themselves through entertainment. They have, why not bring entertainment? Forget keep the old cultures, but you know what? We're the young generation. Let's spend some of our money on other things besides
100%.
formula racing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
New York and Las Vegas have always been the epicenters for boxing, for combat sport. Do you think Saudi Arabia is coming in and going to, take over as the #1 destination?
Well, I think, yeah, for economics and all that, I think you're probably right. So I'm looking forward to it. So I missed the first one. I'm not going to miss the second one.
Fair enough.
And and Amir said the prince wants to meet you. So that's little Chicano kid that grew up as a farmer dealing with royalty.
That's pretty cool.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah.
Stitch, we do this one thing here on the show with all our guests, and we would love to do this with you. We play the thing called the name game. Chance will just throw out random names at you, and quick fire. Tell us what you think, and your initial thoughts on them, if you're up for it.
Go shoot for it.
All right.
Forrest Griffin.
Yeah, I saved his ass many times, man. And when he fought Shogun, that big cut we talked about,
Yeah.
I saved him. He won the fight, and he ended up sending me a nice bonus to a nice restaurant. Good guy.
Chris Algieri. You worked his corner a few times.
Chris Algieri, when he fought Manny Pacquiao, great kickboxer, good guy. I just got his book that he gave me. Now he's doing commentating. Top of the line guy.
Awesome. Floyd Money Mayweather.
Yeah, I just saw Floyd in the dressing room with Caleb Plant. He was there talking to Gervonta Davis because I think they had a little separation somewhere and all that. So I left them alone. But I told him I was so proud of him. I met Floyd when he first got out of the Olympics and he moved to Vegas and he was a young kid. And Roger was training him at that time. So I've been around him all his career here.
Dan Henderson.
Dan Henderson. Yeah, talk about a beast, bro. If anybody you don't want to fight in a bar is Dan Henderson. But that knockout with Michael Bisping, I had to tell Bisping 3 times. Mike, he said, "What happened?" I said, "Michael, you got knocked out." What happened? Mike, you got knocked out. What happened? I said, "Mike, look at me. Look at my eyes. You got knocked out." Dan Henderson does that to you.
Oh, yeah. And one more, Fedor Emelianenko.
Oh, man. Hey, listen. I'll give you one more. Hold on.
Yeah. Whoever listens to Spotify, Stitch is just getting something here. So everybody hang on. Great interview. Great guy.
No, it's fantastic.
Hey, you're talking about Fedor, right?
Yeah.
So when Josh left the UFC, he started fighting in Pride. And he took me as his cut man, right? So he paid for me to go. He handled it. I was independent for Josh. But everybody wanted me to wrap their hands. So Josh would say, "No, you know what? I paid for him to come. If you want Stitch to wrap your hands, $500.
Oh, wow.
That paid $2,000-3,000 this quick, and they all paid cash. So when Fedor came back from breaking his thumb, it was his first fight back. I think he was fighting Mark Hunt or someone. Anyway, the promoter asked me if I would wrap his hands, and of course Fedor was Fedor, right? At that point, I didn't even talk about money or nothing. So I get in there and wrapping his hands, and like I'm talking to you, I like to talk to the fighters. Fedor saying very little. Yeah. Finally, I wrap both his hands, and I say, "Okay, how do they feel?" He goes, "Super." Bro, that's all he said, man. Man, I walked out, I was so happy, man. And, at the end of the fights, we're walking down the hallway to the bus, and him, Josh Barnett, and myself go in there and take shots of vodka, man. But anyway, the last time I worked with him was in San Jose with Bellator, and I walk in from the airport in the lobby, and he's there with his people sitting down. He comes up to me and says, "I got you some sweats." I said, "What?" So he sent someone up to his room. "Bro, look, you tell me who is this?"
Those are cool.
That's
look at
awesome.
that. Look at that. That's why I got to show you, right?
That's
Look at that.
awesome.
That's awesome. It looks nice too. I like it.
That's slick, man. That's really sharp looking.
So that's my story with Fedor Emelianenko.
That's awesome. It's just, you've been doing this for so long, and we talked about psychology a little bit earlier on, and I would love to ask, like, when you walk into the dressing room with the fighter, are you able to gauge what kind of conversation you're gonna have with this athlete? You know what I mean? Just like through body language and everything that they're giving you. How do you gauge it when you come into the room? How do you know what tempo to bring and what energy to bring?
Yeah, laughter's always, that's a good question. Real good. Nobody's ever asked that, but I'll give it to you this way: is laughter, bringing a smile on you during that time is extremely important for me. Is to get it out. So hey, man, any questions, any problems, and look at, don't worry about it. I'm here to take care of you. You just go out there, and so you throw that at them right off the bat, and so and I'll give you the knockout rap and boom boom, and so yeah, you go and you try to inspire them that way. And
Right.
then I've had guys cry when I'm wrapping their head, and I understand. So I'll just stop and let them do their thing, and boom, and then give them a hug. So.
Mhm. So no matter how much you train, no matter how much you prepare for a fight, at that very moment, everything can just be spilling out of you. Is that fair to say?
100%. Yeah, for sure. And that's that adrenaline rush people are talking about. You got to learn to control it while you're in the dressing room, and just don't shoot your adrenaline right off the
Right.
bat. Those are those moments, man. And yeah, I love them.
And have you been in corners where the athlete's looking to you for reassurances, even though their trainers are giving them direction and everything? Has that ever happened where you've had to, that they're looking at you more than their own trainer?
Well, not so much they're looking at more.
Well,
I'll tell them.
yeah.
But I know but I always tell them. I said, look, my job is not to give instruction,
Right.
but they understand that I know the game. I said, like I told Caleb, I said, I don't give instructions, but if I say something, it's the truth, right? And so that's how I handle it with these guys. I'm not one of you're throwing too much information into a small thing that the guy's not going to absorb. So you
Right.
just look for that moment, and the ears right here, and as they're going out,
Right.
I'll put it right in their mind.
That we were both at that fight, and I was telling Chance later that evening, like, I have to watch it on TV to kind of really watch it, because from where I was sitting, I almost felt that Caleb gave everything away in the first round in terms of what he was going to do and how he was going to proceed with this fight. Your thoughts on that fight in particular? I mean, Benavides is a beast, obviously, but do you feel that Caleb gave everything away too soon and showed all his cards?
Well, I think if he would have stuck to those cards, it would have been fine. He was doing fine when he was in the middle of the ring, right? And but once he started going to the ropes, that's Benavides's opportunity. Because in the middle of the ring, Caleb was feigning him, and he's reacting, and so he wasn't as smooth in the middle of the ring as he was getting Caleb on the ropes. So but it's tough to kind of direct the guy when he knows what he wants.
Awesome.
But what a fight. And losing, I told people booed Caleb as we walked into the arena, and then as he's walking out, everybody's cheering. Kind of like a Rocky.
I'll be honest, man, that place was deafening.
Yeah.
I mean, throughout the whole night, that whole card was spectacular. The crowd was one of the loudest boxing. I mean, I haven't been to too many events myself per se, but in terms of sporting events, for the amount of people that were in that facility, wow, that place was lit up all night long. We don't want to take too much more of your time.
I gotta ask Stitch one question.
Sure.
One of our fans told me to ask you this: who hits harder of the Klitschko brothers, Vitaly or Vladimir? Who's got the hardest shot?
Good question. I think Vitaly was the dog. Vladimir was a little bit more sophisticated. Worked with Emmanuel Stewart. Vitaly was the dog. Hands down, I gotta give it to Vitaly Klitschko. He was a beast, bro. And he tells me there's a picture. He has his arm. My last moments with him is when Vladimir Klitschko fought Anthony Joshua. We're saying goodbye to him. Turned out last time I'm seeing him, but I got a picture that the team photographer took of us, and he's up here, but his hand's here, and he says, "Stitch, you've been with us for many, many years. We love you. You're part of the family. You are always welcome to my house." Those were the final words, bro.
Oh,
You know?
That's awesome. That's
That's
awesome.
really good. That
I
means a
got
lot.
one last question here, if I may,
Yeah,
very
no problem.
quickly. So in New Jersey last weekend, Jared Anderson, he's just kind of doing his thing. His comments at the end were, like he's ready for the big names. Your thoughts? Do you think he's ready to
Well,
give it
I
right
think
now?
I think you talked about the guys in the middle. You know, there's certain tiers, right?
Yeah,
But yeah,
But
because he has
but
14 fights. But
yeah,
the
but
guy,
Big Baby's already talking the big show. Like he wants bigger
yeah, well,
names
he's
now.
he's sparring partner for Tyson Fury. You know, so he's working with a big, but he knows. Yeah, he knows. And it's funny with Jared because I'm wrapping his hands, and he just said, "Man, I'm not used to all these interviews and people coming up, the being famous thing, right? So man, I'm not used to it. I don't know if I can handle it, and I don't like it, and this and that." And so as he's walking into the ring, of course, he's smiling, he's laughing, he's loving it. And I'm putting the Vaseline on him. I said, "You liar! You know you love this shit, you know."
That's
So how
awesome.
can you not? Those are signs of respect. You know.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's cool.
All right, so Stitch, we're gonna close this up here. So I know you have an evening ahead of you and whatnot, but last thing I'd like to ask you is what's the message to the world from Stitch Duran for anybody who is trying to find their way and trying to find their way with their passion? What's your advice to the world?
Well, I think you said the number one key word is passion. That's people ask me. I said, look, if you do it for the money, you do it for the wrong reason. You gotta have a passion. But here's that line. We've all been through it. That one line that we're scared to cross.
Yeah.
If you don't cross it, you'll never get there. That's very simple. So yeah, we've all been scared. You guys doing your show. Sure,
Yeah.
you guys were, well, wow, can we do it? Can we not? Well, if you don't do it, you'll never know.
Well, we believe in what we do, and it's with the privilege and the honor of having individuals like yourself join us and help build our brand. Thank you so much, Stitch. That's just absolutely amazing. And on both our behalf, we would love to have you on our show again.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
just to come in and talk boxing and just to talk about combat sports in general, man. We would love to have you on again, sir.
Well, let's do this and let's do it real soon. Send me your email. I'll send
Yeah.
you this documentary. You guys take a look at it, and let's talk about that one.
Sounds good.
I want to get the word.
Definitely.
Not so much the film. It's not even about the film. It's about the questions that I brought up
Yeah.
and the answers that they gave us. Like Joe Lewis's daughter. I got Joyce Barrow, Joe Lewis's daughter. Very simply, she says, every organization has insurance, has this and that. Why not boxing? Why not boxing? That's how the film ends.
Yeah.
But it's
Can't wait
true.
to see this.
And it totally makes sense at the end of the day. I mean, I think all combat sports should have some sort of contingency plan. I mean, I guess wrestling in professional wrestling, I guess the closest thing to that would be the cauliflower alley club. You know what I mean?
Which
Like,
isn't much. It's not much though.
it's not much, but that's an organization out of Vegas that helps retired professional wrestlers.
Yeah. Well, there's some small movements going on. Actually, my daughter Carla and Rose Gracie, one of the daughters from the Gracie family, and this
Yeah.
other guy, Eric, have sold the commissions on CTE is a big thing right now.
Yeah.
On taking when you because none of us when we get our license, none of us have to be certified.
Right.
None of us. So in getting your license next year, there's a little question, true or false, on CTE. And you got to answer them. And it's not that you fail, it's that you understand what creates CTE.
Right.
And one of the simple question is, does sparring in the gym create CTE? True or false? But yeah, it does. So and so on drug. So they implemented that with the commissions. And not only that, but now they're working on having 10 retired fighters be part of the Association of Boxing Commission decision making. So now you're going to have fighters involved in. So there's a small movement going on behind the scenes, and this documentary will bring attention to you. Well, you look at it and you'll understand how important what goes on.
100%. Well, I tell you what, we will send our information. I can't wait to watch this.
Yeah, and then we'll sit down and we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
Definitely. All right, guys. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Bobby Sampson. I got Chance Michaels right here, and beside us we have the legend, the man, Stitch Duran. Thank you so much, Stitch, for coming on today's episode. Thank you for taking out the time and gracing us with everything that you've just provided to us. Thank you so much, sir.
Do it again. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Wait.
Have a great evening.
All right, guys. Thanks.
Okay, bye-bye.